So welcome to lesson 32, and we're going to be talking about understanding skin irritation during weight loss. When I was losing the weight and I had the last 50 pounds to lose, I was taking it really seriously and I learned about intermittent fasting and low carb. I had a lot of rashes and it lasted for about a month, and this is why I'm putting this as part of the course, that it was significant enough that I felt it needed to be addressed. Now, from what I understand and what I've learned about is that when you are losing weight, your body is releasing this fat and releasing some toxins sometimes, and I don't know all the proper terms for it, but what I understood is that basically your body is releasing a lot of stuff, and where is it going to go? And a lot of times it will come out into the skin. And so I had rashes, and they were rashes on parts of my body, under my boobs, on my hips, on my thighs, and those were the parts where I had the most fat deposited or the fat stored. And so that's where I was very itchy, and it disrupted my sleep really badly. So I had to have a lot of aloe vera cream. I would have washcloths, that were wet and cold, and those would help. And I don't know if I actually had to take, antihistamines or pain meds, but it was very uncomfortable. And after about 3 to 4 weeks, it went away. Part of that Facebook group that I mentioned before, that's where I realized, okay, this is normal. Lots of people do this. I also Googled it, researched it a little bit more to realize I'm not allergic to something. It's just my body releasing all of these toxins. I guess they're toxins, and it's got to go somewhere. And it always was in areas where I had the most fat stored. So my boobs, my stomach, and my thighs. And it was not pleasant. So be prepared. This might happen to you. It's not worth stopping your weight loss journey for this. If it gets really bad, maybe go to the doctors and ask them about, some topical cream might work. I'm not sure. But just realize that this might happen. And that's what this module is all about, is what to expect. And these are my stories, and from what I've learned, that these can be things that you can expect. So that's related to the skin irritation. Now, I didn't really know where else to put the topic of perimenopause and menopause in this weight loss course. I'm not the doctor. I'm not the registered dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I just have all of this years of experience studying it and researching it. But the more I research, the more I realize this is a big topic. There's people who have all kinds of opinions. They say, if you're a woman, don't do intermittent fasting. And then another place will say, if you're a woman, you need to do intermittent fasting. And depending on your age, you need to do it differently. And it doesn't actually make sense, because every woman is different. Everybody is going to be going through perimenopause and menopause differently, different times, different decades even. How can somebody actually say this is it? This is the solution. This is what you need to do. So I'm very skeptical of people who say this is what everybody should do. So what works for one person is not going to necessarily work for everybody else. But in general, how does intermittent fasting and going low carb and losing weight, how does that affect perimenopause or menopause, or vice versa? Are those things affecting how well you are successful at the weight loss? So this is my story. I had periods for 40 years, so age 12 to age 52. I had 3 pregnancies, and so those were the only months that I didn't have a period, and I had very regular periods all the way up until age 52, except for I had very heavy periods for about 2 years, and I would go into the hospital, emergency, and I'd say, I think I'm hemorrhaging, and they do all the tests. They say, no, it's probably just perimenopause symptoms. And this was between the ages of 49 to 52. So they started to do some tests. They said I did have thickening lining of the uterus. And the reason I knew I was probably hemorrhaging is, for instance, I had a 4-month-long period at one point. So that was not fun. So it's possible that my obesity, because I was in the obesity category for about 6 years, it's possible that that contributed to me having this thickening lining of the uterus. My mother also had uterine cancer, but she didn't have it till she was 60. So did my obesity speed it up at the age of 52? I don't know. We'll never know. but it can be a contributing factor. So I went and had a full hysterectomy at the age of 52 and went straight into menopause because they said, because you had cancer, you can't be on any hormones. So straight away, I had had one hot flash up until my hysterectomy. I didn't really know what it was like. And straight away, I started having really bad hot flashes. They impacted my work. They impacted my sleep. It was not fun at all. I don't have hot flashes too much now. It's been 2 years. There is a direct link for me. If I eat high carb and more processed foods, I have way more hot flashes. And thankfully, hot flashes are the only thing that's lingered. Right after the hysterectomy, I had memory loss. I had moodiness. There was other things. Thankfully, that's all gone. And it's just the hot flashes that come now and then. I'm learning to have layered clothing in case I need to take something off. And I've had to learn to nap because if I wake up with a hot flash, my sleep is interrupted. So those are things that have impacted me since the hysterectomy. So did obesity cause my cancer? I don't know. It's very possible it accelerated it because there is a history of this cancer in my family, my aunts, my mother, and so they are having it in their 60s and 70s, and I had it in my early 50s. It's possible the obesity made it come quicker. That's my thinking on this. I'll never actually know the answer to it, but I'm glad I went ahead and had this hysterectomy. So what do I do when I have hot flashes? So I get a fan out and I have fans around more than I ever used to. And I had more layered clothing so that I can rip my sweater off if I'm hot. I have multiple layers of blankets on my bed so I can rip them off when I get hot. And so I feel the hot flash coming on and I immediately am trying to be proactive to not let it get so bad that it's like unbearable and I can't think of anything else because I'm so hot. So the other thing related to perimenopause and menopause can be sleep disruptions. Since I was 30, I've not been able to sleep as well, and I've tried many different things, so I'm not sure whether the perimenopause and menopause was exasperating any of that. So like I say, I'm learning to take naps when I can or just rest when I can, and it gives me a boost and helps me get through. And I think I might be one of these people where they have 2 sleep cycles because that seems to be very, very common for my brain is that I wake up, I'm wide awake, I have great inspiration, and then I have to have a second sleep cycle. So I might be one of those people. My dad used to wake up at 4 in the morning all the time, so it's genetic too. Whether sleep is impacted by weight loss, I don't know. I mean, I was losing weight. I had the same sleep issues before my hysterectomy, after my hysterectomy. My sleep history has been about the same for almost 20 years. But a good thing about losing weight and related to sleep is that if you have a CPAP machine, a lot of times you don't need the CPAP machine after you've lost the weight. So these are 2 sort of separate topics that I've talked about in this lesson, but I wanted to at least share my story in case any of you can relate and maybe some tips for how to get through that time if you've had a hysterectomy and realize that the low carb and the intermittent fasting really helps with the hot flashes. It's a very noticeable thing for me. When I'm eating clean, when I'm eating the 1 ingredient foods, I have very few hot flashes. And it gets better. It's been 2 years. It's definitely getting better. So maybe you can try that and try the intermittent fasting and the low carb and see if it helps your hot flashes as well. So in our next lesson, we're going to be talking about acne and clearing up our skin with a different diet. This was a really significant one for me. So see you in the next lesson.